Welcome to Peacebuilding Initiatives, where we explore the transformative power of dialogue, cross-cultural understanding, and the collective empathy in building more peaceful and connected communities. I'm your host, José Barzola. Thank you for joining us. In today's episode, we're talking about from ICU to root cause, why I left hospital medicine to help patients heal differently. Our special guest is Nancy Mitchell Silva, APRN, AGACNP, BC, a board certified nurse practitioner with over 20 years of experience in cardiology and advanced heart failure. She trained in practice at leading institutions, including UCLA Health, UC San Diego Health, and the Queens Medical Center. Nancy is the founder of Mahalo Medicine, a functional medicine practice in Hawaii that helps individuals identify and address the root causes of chronic illness through personalized nutrition, targeted supplementation, and sustainable lifestyle transformation. Blending academic rigor, advanced clinical expertise, and Hawaiian cultural principles, Nancy empowers patients to reduce medication dependence and reclaim vibrant health. Nancy, thank you so much for being here. It's truly a pleasure to have you with us, and really look forward to going on this journey of conversation and learning more about your lived experience and the pathways you've taken and how you're caring for the community in so many different facets. So to get us started, we'll go back to your own personal journey. You spent over 2 decades in high acuity cardiology settings at institutions like UCLA Health and the Queens Medical Center. What was the turning point that made you realize hospital medicine just wasn't enough?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for inviting me on here. This is going to be really fun, so I appreciate the time. So yeah, I spent, 20 years, between being a nurse and nurse practitioner and because my whole journey of even getting to become a nurse was when my mother got sick and had leukemia. And this was back in 1989, and I didn't know anyone who had cancer. I didn't know anyone who had died, like any chronic disease. And so it really prompted me to go into this world so I could understand, thinking that I could then make a difference. But then, you learn your studies and you go in and you start practicing, and you realize that you kind of get into the machine, of like doing the same thing and seeing people get sick, and oh, there's only so much we can do. And actually, one of the reasons I left UCLA, well, not one of the main reasons, but I moved to San Diego with my now husband. But I took a little break because I just saw so many people die that it really took a toll on me. And granted, I'm in cardiology, and there are a lot of people that pass away, but it just felt like, man, it could just, can't we be doing more? And also my background, I grew up doing martial arts, so I was in the Kung Fu area, so I was learning a lot about traditional Chinese medicine, herbs, energy work. This is also back in the 90s before, you know, internet and all of that. So I was reading and studying, and back then it things just felt more integrative anyway. And at UCLA, we had the East-West Medicine Center, and we were kind of integrating things. And but as time went on, it just felt like it became more and more like, no, this is the only way, and we can't integrate these other things. You either have to go to an acupuncturist or your medical doctor or a naturopath or whatever. And for me, like I really see benefits of including all of that. And so in around 2013, I think it was, around that time, I got into raw food. And so it was an interesting thing that happened. I can't remember if I watched a documentary or something, and I was hearing about how raw food has all the live enzymes, which then the enzymes help every cell of your body do the metabolisms it needs to carry out whatever organ system you're in. Not metabolism as far as digestion, but cellular metabolism. And it made so much sense to me because, we learn all this in biology. Like, yes, enzymes can't live over 128 degrees, and enzymes are needed for every catalyst of every function, cellular function in your body. So, cooked foods would have less enzymes because they're denatured from the heat. And yet, this principle doesn't really affect culturally your diet. We get into like protein diet and low fat and eat this and eat that and vegan and vegetarian and all those things are nice, but all of those are great for all different people. Every person on this planet is going to have a diet that's right for them. There is no one perfect diet, and we see that, right? We see like the Okinawans eat a lot of carbohydrates, right? And then you see Eskimos and it's all fat. And so it's like, well, how can these people eat all these different things? Well, it's culture, and our bodies are different and everyone is different. And so that really kind of woke me up of like going back to my biology and enzymes and seeing how eating a lot of cooked food increases your leukocytosis, which is basically white blood cells. White blood cells trigger inflammation. It's a sign of inflammation, and inflammation causes all disease process. And so with my patients, I was just and the other thing we know is that you don't have to eat all raw food. 50% of your meal raw prevents the leukocytosis. And so you don't have to change everything, which was really nice because, you can have whatever culture, there's going to be some type of raw food you can bring in. And so I got really into telling my patients about just add, what is it, avocado or sprouts or whatever it is that's raw, fruit, whatever. And so when I was in San Diego, I was doing my raw food thing and I was trying to work with the dietary, trying to change things in the dietary in the kitchen with no luck. And so I was working with patients, and I had this one patient, it was one kid who was about 19. He was like 6'7", and we were doing these crazy surgeries where somebody has like a blood clot in their lung, and they would cool down the body really, really low, cut out these clots out of the lung, and then basically you're dead, and then warm you back up. And so one of the side effects would be an anoxic brain injury. So they have no oxygen in their brain. And so this kid who was 6'7", trained in Taekwondo, had an anoxic brain injury. He was injuring a bunch of people because became violent after that. And so he was at this point he was already recovered, but nobody would take him because if you're violent, no facility is going to take you. And so they were taking away the security, things like that. And that's when I got him. And so when I had him, I was giving him his pain meds or something innocuous. And he got up out of bed and he slammed me against the wall and started beating me up. And I yelled. And luckily, a nurse down the hall, a male nurse down the hall, came and grabbed him, got him off of me. And I was just so shaken from that incident. And, just like when you're in a car accident, like your adrenaline's flowing, I felt okay and realized at that point, this was happened around noon. I couldn't leave because there was nobody to cover me on my shift. And so um that's and then by as the I was so shaken and I realized I had these really sick patients. They switched my patients and I was doing, you know, titrating meds, things like that, things that I had to check every hour and not really realizing like, did I do this before? Because my brain was just, on adrenaline and shock. And then I started realizing like, oh my God, my license now is on the line because I can't focus properly in a state like this. Then my foot started hurting as the adrenaline starts to calm down and thought maybe something happened to my foot. Meanwhile, my husband's texting me, go to the emergency room, go downstairs. What are you doing working? And I'm like, I can't. There's nobody to cover me. And then kind of realizing how ridiculous that was at the end, after work, I went down. Well, turns out my foot was broken. And so I had to have surgery on my foot, and I was out of work for a few months because of that. And that experience, interestingly, is really what kind of woke me up to I am just a pawn in the machine. Like I'm doing, and here's the thing, all the nurses, the doctors, they are working, they're caring for their patients. They are for sure, there because we all have this, every one of us has a reason to go into healthcare. For me, it was my mom. Everyone has their story, their reason why they're there. Um, but the whole system, it really woke me up that, like, wow, this could, like, my life, I could have killed somebody, if I hadn't checked properly. And that's when I decided to go back to school, become a nurse practitioner, to then have more autonomy, more control, which then I realized was also just another level. I mean, I thought that would give me more, but it is because now I have my Mahalo medicine. But that really was the turning point for me of really kind of waking up like I can only do so much in this system. And um I can help, but the system is really larger than me, and there's only so much you can do um, within it. Not to say you can't, but then, of course, and then we ran into COVID and all of that stuff, which was even more. That's when I actually left Queens. But for me, that was, and then seeing all the simple, simple things we can do and tell people to improve their health. Dietary. You don't have to change your whole diet. Simple, simple. I had a patient when I was in heart failure here at Queens, a new patient from the mainland, military, older guy, African American, and came in with his wife. Um, his wife was nonverbal. He was her caretaker. She was in a wheelchair. She had severe dementia. She stopped eating. All she was drinking was Ensure, and she was just sitting in the corner. And I was talking to him, it was a first consult, talking to him about everything. And he's like, I'm not, because I always give my spiel about, adding in live foods, this and that. He's like, I'm a meat and potatoes. I'm not eating any green stuff, this and that. And I was like, okay. I'm like, how about you add in just a small glass of green juice every day? You can eat all the meat, everything else. Will you do that? And he's like, sure. So I always recommend there's a Suja at Costco, Suja. It's organic, it's cold pressed, it's fairly inexpensive at Costco, it's great ingredients. So I see him like, and then I'm talking to him about stuff, and then I was like, your wife, you can give it to your wife too, because ensure, I'm like, maybe slip in a green juice. Well, he comes back a month or so later. His wife is walking in with a cane, speaking. And I got him off like four medications after that. He started drinking the green juice and he started giving it to his wife. So surprisingly, his wife is actually the one that really turned around. I mean, he did better too, and here's the thing, I know the power of this stuff, and I was shocked. I was like, holy moly, like just green juice. Because here's the thing, she wasn't eating. So she was just sucking down green juice instead of the Ensure. And her mind came back. I mean, it was pretty. So things like that power, you don't have to change everything. So yeah, to me, I'm always still fascinated by these stories of patients that small, small tweaks make huge differences. And it's like, these are very simple that we can be integrating into, it doesn't take a whole lot of, um, even in a 15-minute visit, we can do small things.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And thank you also just for reminding us. I mean, we hear about this, maybe we become aware of this from time to time, but we forget because we're, I think, just whatever profession you're in, you're conditioned to go through certain routines, certain protocols, and sometimes the human aspect of the interaction the gets taken away, and it's just like, oh, it's a patient, oh, it's just a client, and you just go through the checklist without, as what we've heard and what we know is treating everyone individually, holistically. And that's what I really hear that, and what I've seen that you're doing. So thank you so much for just reminding us and continuing to do that.
And
Um,
that is one thing I do with my students because I teach over at HPU is I always go around the room with these first students. What brought you here?
mhm.
And write that down. That is your North Star. That is why you're going into this. You go in and you're going to get wrapped up with all this other stuff and wanting out, because it becomes, there is a lot of ego in the healthcare industry and who's higher up and who knows more and who has more, letters behind their name and did this and did that. And oh my gosh, I don't know about this. And I tell them, we all have our strengths. You don't have to be the most clinically superior person. Your strength might just be that you can talk to difficult patients and get through to them. Somebody else might be able to intubate every single patient every single time and not miss, but man, they have a terrible bedside manner and patients don't want to be around them. But here's the thing, you got to know your strength. And so we need all of that. So rather than berate somebody like, oh, I can't believe you didn't know that. And the other part is that we're human. We're all human beings. We all are going through something, losses, storms, whatever is going on. And we're humans and we're showing up at work. And we have to be able to, you know, be gracious to each other and our coworkers as well as our patients. Our patients aren't our enemy. And sometimes with these constraints from the system, it feels like that sometimes. And that's what I want to try and break away from. That's why, at least with my students, I try and like remember why you're here. Remember, and not just that, but also for yourself so that you have some purpose going through all of this. So you don't lose that, and it doesn't just become a job that you're clocking in, clocking out, because then nobody wins.
Yeah, I completely agree. Find I always find when people are looking for careers, I'm always like, are you looking to do that because it's going to give you the money to then do what you really want to do? Or are you doing that because you're truly passionate and it brings you joy? And sometimes I just have to like break it down in time with people. I'm like, well, you're going to be spending probably more time at this job than you actually do in your home or around your family. So maybe for your own like mental health, your own enriching, being kind to your soul, nourishing your body, like maybe you want to
Yeah.
look for something that you're passionate about
And we get a mixed
that brings you
bag
joy.
with nursing because it is a job that you can travel anywhere, you
Right.
can have a job anywhere you go. So I mean, it pays well. It doesn't pay great, but it pays well.
Mhm.
Um, but it does attract people who are very empathetic, and
Mhm.
those people can get eaten up and spit out. And so it's a mixed bag. You have both. So you have to kind of like create some empathy in those people that just want to like travel the world. But I would say those are fewer
Yeah.
because it's hard to get into this if you don't have
Well,
some love of
it,
people.
and I remember hearing, especially with the pandemic, there was like so much burnout on top of that. It was like,
Totally.
it's just, yeah. So thank you for
Yeah.
all you do and continue to do.
I mean,
So
here's the thing, people were already burnt out. And then
yeah,
COVID came. So it wasn't
exactly.
like COVID itself was like that bad. I mean, it was, but it was
No,
just on top of a system that was already stretching everyone thin, that it was like, oh, here. And honestly, like for me, one of the hardest parts was I still had to go to work and everyone was at home and not working. you know? And I was just like, I just want a day off, you know? It's like, yes, I'm grateful for what I do and I'm happy, but man, it would be nice, all these people at the beach all day because they're not working. I know it's stressful because they're not working, but
Yeah.
man, that was hard.
Thank you. Thank you for your service and the ongoing continued support that you provide. It's yeah, I find that there's a lot of systems in place, whether it's nursing, whether it's higher education. You pick the topic. There's a protocol, there's a process that has been set up many times decades ago, and very little has been done to update that process of those protocols. And we all know, like, what is it like? Not to name drop a product, but like the iPhone, there's what, one or two of them a year. After like a few months, the moment that you basically buy technology or you buy a car, you take it off the lot, it becomes ancient already.
Yep.
But when it comes to these professions, it's like, oh no, it's okay. Whatever you were taught
Yeah.
like 50 years ago, we can still
Yeah.
use the
I mean,
same
I'll tell
systems
you
in
right
place.
now, the stuff that we are doing right now is 20-year-old research. You know, we're just now in the hospital, like recognizing the microbiome in the gut and with antibiotics. Like we've known all this, right? But
Yeah.
there's no protocol in the hospital for patients taking antibiotics and we know now too that it takes an entire year for that microbiome to replenish after one course of antibiotics. And yet we don't acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think people don't realize too, and here's the thing, I didn't even realize this as a nurse, is that when you're a provider, you follow guidelines. So every diagnosis we have has a guideline. And the guidelines are based on research, which is good. So here's the thing, like I'm in cardiology, but I get a patient who has high blood pressure, but then had a stroke. Well, strokes aren't my thing. I know the high blood pressure, but I don't know the stroke. So I can look at the guideline for the stroke and know exactly what to do, what tests to do, everything. And so it's great for that. But what happens is providers get locked into the guideline and it becomes this like cookie cutter medicine where nobody's thinking outside of that guideline. Everyone is just following guidelines, which again is the idea was great. It was to create safety and so everyone's on the same page, giving research related, evidence-based guidance on what to do. But here's the thing, like not everyone's the same. Not everyone's the same. And it takes away the art of medicine, which I think has been lost. We've just become and which is why AI is going to take over. Everyone's worried about AI taking over doctors. Well, yeah, if everything's a guideline, why do we need doctors? Honestly, we don't. But why do you want a doctor? Not to know the guideline. I mean, that might be a small part of it, especially if in acute care where things you need to know right away. But you want a doctor because we know from studies, doctors that connect with their patients are sued less. And not that this is about litigation, it's about feeling heard, feeling cared for, feeling listened to. That is more important. And honestly, that is where the healing is. It just that and the other thing that always struck me too is when somebody goes to a procedure or surgery, something like that, the last thing we do is go through the consent form, which is you could die, you could bleed to death, you could get an infection, you could get, all the things that could happen. You sign the consent saying, yes, I understand the risks. That's what's going through your head before you go into the door. I mean, and we know, I mean, maybe not we compartmentalize as if like our head is separate from our body, but We know that our thoughts are powerful and our thoughts can change our body. I can think of a lemon and salivate. I can think of, you know, a food and start salivating. Like I'm not smelling it, I'm not eating it. That's my mind creating a physiologic response. We know this is true, but yet we don't utilize. We think of it as like woo woo or like, oh, it's extra. But what about the patient outcomes? If before a surgery or a procedure, we talked about how strong your body is and how it's going to respond to this and how all your, we're going to get rid of the infection or whatever it is that the surgery's for and your body's going to flourish after and all, all of that. Like, no, we don't. It's it's tough. My hope was with COVID that all of this would come about, but no, it didn't. We actually doubled down and time got shorter and tighter and but yeah, it's so needed and I think this is why I created what I do is basically because I don't take insurance. It's hard. I mean, that's the other hard part is insurance dictates everything you do. Guidelines dictate everything you do, and there's no more art. But people just want to talk to somebody and listen to them. And even if I don't have the answers, and I can say, I can try and help you, I can try and go through this, and we're gonna talk things through. We'll do maybe some tests, whatever. But like, that's all people want. And that is what's getting lost. And that's what AI can't do. Anyone can go onto ChatGPT and put in their symptoms.
And hopefully they're getting
Yeah.
ChatGPT is getting some reputable resources. Otherwise, it might be a very fatal result. No, no, thank you so much for that. And yeah, you're right. I always hear from folks in the healthcare field how much insurance is dictating, and maybe that's the reason why we're 20 years behind on the medicine, the health services that are being provided because the insurance hasn't caught up or the research isn't there to back it up. And yeah, it's
Yeah, and
one
also
day.
things like mindfulness and things like that also don't make them money. So
Yeah,
there's the money
yeah,
aspect too. It doesn't, they want to get people on more medication so they can make more
yeah.
money.
I was just about to say that the business aspect of things, like it's like, oh wait, what are we recommending for people to do? To just take walks and
Right.
go to their local farmers
Exactly.
market and eat fruits and
Right.
vegetables and not have to take medicine?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Hmm.
How do we make money off of
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that research has been around for a long time, but
Mm. Yeah, I mean,
there's no big
yeah.
arugula out there like there's big pharma, but no big arugula. Like, yeah, making money.
Well, thank you. Now, I know that just for folks listening, I know leaving conventional hospital practice is a bold move. I imagine there must have been multiple conversations with your partner and loved ones. Like, so what fears or doubts did you have to overcome? Just for anyone out there who might be inspired by this conversation. And
Oh my
um,
goodness. It's tough. It is really and this is why a lot of people don't leave, don't do what I did because it's hard. There is one other girl in my class who has done something similar who has left, but it's hard because your whole career you have been working in this field and there's an identity with it. There is, and not only that, but there is, you wear the white coat and you walk into the hospital and people look up to you and, you know, want your opinion and all of that and your colleagues and it's great. But it was really, really difficult. And honestly, if it weren't for my husband, because he was the one that really pushed me to leave, because he could see it was sucking me. I did a lot the years I was in it to do what I could within the system and helping my patients, but I was hitting a wall, and he knew I wanted to do more and knew, I could do more outside of it, but had to leave. And honestly, teaching has been good because it allows me to try and plant that seed into others. So that I really enjoy because I tell my students, like, you don't even have to work in a hospital. Like, you could become, you know, work as wellness and do other things like that. And so, you want to work in a hospital to get experience and all that, but I know that it chews people up and they feel like, oh, if I can't work in a hospital, I can't be a nurse, but it is very difficult and you have to really, I mean, I did a lot of writing and journaling and what is it that I want from my life? How do I, and also I think just being older too and having worked in this industry for so long, I felt like I had gained a lot of experience and knowledge and wisdom and could embody that into the next chapter. But I mean, there's times where I miss it, and want to go back, and you feel like, you're just, maybe not as important, but I know now over time that that is not true because, I have more impact in what I do individually with my patients now and clients, but I also sleep well at night. I know what I'm doing is, you know, it's my kuleana, this is like my purpose, what I need to do. And so it's tough. It's really, really tough. My husband's still in at Queens in the
So,
roller
so, so
coaster.
you get all the
I
stories
do,
to
I do,
help you
I
evaluate,
do.
did I make the right choice?
Yes, yes, yes. So, which is good because then I still have like a connection to it because I do miss it. And I just, it's like, I wish that the system were better, I keep hoping that the system will change. But you know, if it's profiting off people's health, it'll never change, And so it's not like, conspiracy, like all these people are it's a consciousness,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that's why drug pharmaceutical companies can't come in and give you gifts, because if I gave you a pencil, even if you didn't like just a pencil, you feel obligated to me in a little way.
Mm,
That's just human nature, right? And so that's
right.
why pharmaceutical reps can't buy people, come in and buy lunch and send them people on trips. But here's the thing, they still do. But because that's just human nature, you're like,
It sounds like lobbyists right now,
yes,
basically.
they come in every day. They still do. They get
Wow.
around the rules. It still happens. And then you get your diabetic patient, you're like, oh, maybe I'll use that Jardiance that the rep came and talked about, and they talk about all the studies and this and that. It sounds great, but
Yeah.
that's just, again, it's a consciousness. It's not like people, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to create a system and then we're going to have this and then we're going to profit off people's illnesses and then they're going
Mm,
to need another pill. It's just when you have a system like that, that's just what manifests, in that
right.
consciousness. It's just how, that's why you can't have insider trading because we're people and we're gonna we're gonna do that stuff. So when you have a system that makes money off of medication and people who need medication, and then another medication that creates a side effect that needs another medication, it's just
Right.
you're not really thinking about maybe some green juice.
Right.
Maybe
In
some
in
green juice would stop all
in
this.
your experience, have you encountered that somewhere in the world they might be maybe not 100% right, but they're doing things a little better than what we're doing here?
Oh. That's a good question. It's hard because what we do really well is acute care. If you're in a
Mm.
car accident, if you have a severe infection, something like that, we do a great job. What we do terribly at is chronic disease, which is what most people have. And so, my experiences with traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture and herbs, which are amazing. And so I work with a lot of women with like hormones, menopause, perimenopause, PCOS, things like that. And herbs are wonderful. And so my first thought is like, yeah, that's a system that works great, but it doesn't do so great if you're in an accident or something like acute that needs to be addressed right away. So that's why I love combining lots of different forms, and they have the Ayurvedic, in India and that form of medicine and, homeopathy, which is really gotten a bad rap, but that's kind of how the idea of vaccination came from. You take a little, you take one thing and you distill it down, 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 down to a small, like almost energetic part, and then introduce that, and then your body can create a reaction to that. So, um, anyhow, yeah, I really find that, I mean, I don't know if anywhere really is doing all of that, but I felt like when I first got into this 20 years ago, we were really open to that. At least, especially at UCLA, we had the Center for East West Medicine. We were really kind of combining all of that together. But over the years, um, the pharmaceutical industry has really become stronger and kind of pushed away those avenues and really has doubled down on now all of these biologic medicines. They've really, which are from mouse ovaries and mouse cell lines, which can create havoc in our body. So I had actually a coworker at when I was in San Diego. She had horrible eczema all over her body, terrible, and she was trying all this stuff, couldn't get rid of it, and finally went on Humira, and Humira was like killing her, horrible side effects, and she wasn't able to work. She had to take time off. And this is when I was just starting all my raw food stuff. I was like, hey, I gave her some recipes. She like bought a Vitamix, was making smoothies and all this stuff. All her eczema went away. Everything went away. She got off the Humira and she was just like in shock. She went all in though, because she was like, I can't take this medicine. But, the commercials show like, oh, you just take this medicine and everything goes away. But there are terrible side effects. And again, I think people are just looking for answers. But here's the thing, like, we don't learn. The only way I know this is because read stuff on my own. And so we're not teaching this. I try and like plant little seeds with my students, but I mean, I'm not fully teaching all of this. But if we were able to have this information to just, you know, talk to our patients and like, because I think the other idea is that doctors think like, oh, patients aren't going to do that. I say they will. They actually will. If they don't, that's their option, right? Like, but we have to be able to treat people like adults and make that decision. Say, hey, try this because one, I've seen it work in other patients, and two, the literature and the research shows that it, works. And you go back to just basic biology, and it makes sense. But you know, we just
Well, well, thank you. Thank you. I started thinking about like countries where, you know, there's like universal healthcare, and I was like, oh, I wonder if they're doing anything much better, or it's just the same cookie cutter,
It's the
training that everyone
same.
has received. Okay.
It's the same. It's just their costs are a little different.
Yeah.
But it's still run by pharmaceuticals. Um,
Can't get away.
they're still dictating. I know it's crazy the amount of money they have. When I go to some of
Wow.
these conferences, um, because I go to the, you know, supplement conferences and functional medicine conferences, and they're fun. But then you go to the conferences, supported by the pharmacology. They've got interactive light. I mean, it's like going to Vegas. You're like, wow,
You're
this is
like, am I
just
at the
like
right place here?
it's like the amount of money they put into each stand, it's like,
Wow.
holy moly, they went all out. Like it's so funny because I'm used to the like, low end conferences where people are, just trying to,
Maybe they have a table cover.
yeah.
And maybe they're giving out pens if you're lucky.
I mean, these pharmaceutical sponsor ones, I mean, they're handing out like filet mignon. I mean, it's like full on.
Wow.
And they razzle dazzle you, and you're like, ooh, they
Yeah.
must be doing something right. Look at it, like, and
Yeah.
it really does dazzle you. And you think like, maybe I'm like, who, these guys over there, like maybe they don't really know what they're like. They would have more money, right? If they like knew what they were talking about. Look at these guys. They're
Mm,
all, but no, when you're in it and you see it, you're like,
yeah.
it's, yeah.
Well, no, thank you. So you talked a little bit about rethinking healing earlier and, you know, focusing on vegetables and roots and raw. What was it, like 50% of what you eat
Yep.
should be raw?
Yep.
And for people are like, no, that's like your fruits and vegetables right there. Or you're like, oh, maybe I can eat this vegetable raw as opposed to steaming it or cooking it because you're going to lose some other nutritional value doing that. So, so a lot of that just leading me to my next question about chronic disease. How much do you see? How much of chronic disease would you say is lifestyle versus stress, trauma, emotional health, which we haven't talked about just yet, but would love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah. I mean, all of that. So here's the thing, all disease is from inflammation. And so whether it's from trauma or food or stress, all of that causes inflammation. And so if you can get the inflammation down, you can reverse the disease process. So, just like diabetes, people think like, oh, it's sugar, sugar, sugar. No, sugar is just the consequence of the inflammation. So with diabetes, the sugar can't get from the blood into the cell. So all that extra sugar needs to be processed, but the sugar didn't cause that. That's a consequence. What caused it was the sticky receptor, the GLUT4 receptor that needs to open up. The insulin needs to open that up to get the sugar into the cell. And so if you can unstick that receptor, then the sugar can go in and, the inflammation's gone. So which is why eating fruit for a diabetic is so good because people think about all the sugar, but they don't realize fruit contains other things than sugar. And it contains phytonutrients, compounds. And here's the thing, like I'm talking about all the measurable stuff, but there's also a whole unmeasurable aspect to it that we don't even know about. Let's talk about the mana from the land of the food that you grow. Like we can't measure that, but we can feel it and you can notice it when you eat that food. And so, what is that doing to the body? How is that decreasing inflammation? And so, most of this chronic disease is inflammatory. And so, if somebody, because I have patients that are like, oh my God, but he eats a perfect diet. Well, is it perfect because they've got a list and they're, I got to eat this and this. And I have the patients that are like, I'm taking this supplement, I'm eating this, and I portion out my carbs and my fats. And I read the study and I'm not having any saturated fat, and da 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 da. Okay, but do you have any joy with eating your food? You know? And so that creates stress. And here's the thing, like I'm very regimented, but I love the food that I eat, you know? And so I have joy and I have my juices and my smoothies and all of that stuff and I love it and I enjoy it. But if it's things are causing you stress, that's why that type A personality, it's stress and inflammation. So, but if you can be that way and still balance and you're getting sleep and you're having gratitude and you know, everything's about balance. Everything is about balancing, you know, people ask me, what's the one thing that I should eat or do or whatever. And I say, it's the thing you can do, you know? You want to, some people, it's taking supplements. I can pop a pill, I can take the supplements. Great. Other people are like, I don't want to take any pills. I don't want to take anything. Just tell me what to eat. Great. But you have to know what you can do, or other people are like, I am too busy. I can't walk or go to the gym. Great. Get a rebounder, jump on that, get the blood moving, do that 5 minutes at your house, So it depends what you can do. Um, but we, and then even if you're doing everything right, we have all the electrosmog and, you know, the pesticides and herbicides and all of that stuff. Everything's just around us, our water. And so it's important, even if you are eating well and exercising and doing all the right things, you might have genetic susceptibility to certain diseases, cancers, whatever. And here's the thing, like we get afraid of cancer, but cancer is just your body. It's a warning sign from your body that something is off, right? It's your own body. It's not this like thing that came in. And so your body's always trying to protect yourself. And so a lot of times we get upset with our bodies. Why did this happen? This and that. But your body is always trying to protect itself. And, even with fat, bloating, the body is trying to wall something off to protect the organs, to protect whatever it is. It's, vessels, lining. It's trying to protect something against something that it sees as a threat. And so if we can then, here's the thing, the body's also always healing itself. So it's never a one, like you're there and that's it. Like it's always moving. If you scanned your body every day for a year, you might see a cancer one day and then months later it's not there anymore because we're always getting these things and having things happen in our body and then the body resolves it. So it's this fluidity, and that's the beauty is that you're never stuck. There's always something you can do. Whether it's gone on too long, that's another question. That's why we're always trying to, you know, stay the course. And we're going to vacillate back and forth, right? So you're going to have like good days of eating and exercise, and then you go on vacation, which is good. But then you got to get back to that. And I think a lot of times what we do now is we're on a constant party, right? We're always trying to reward ourselves, because of all the stresses. But we also have to, take care of our bodies and understand that like we need a week of like no going, just really keeping our vessel healthy because we just live in a world just scrolling on your phone can cause stress, and I hear people talking about today, all this stuff and oh my God, we're at war and this and that and it's like stop watching TV and this isn't going to, the stuff's still going to go on, yes, and you need to be informed. Trust me, you will be informed. You will know about all this stuff, but your nervous system cannot handle this stuff. We are getting so much input from everywhere that our nervous systems don't know what's real and what's not. And so when you're seeing this stuff and internalizing it and experiencing it, it does not realize that you're just looking at a photo or a description of something. And so when you're reading all of these, Epstein and, war and, what Trump did or whatever, it's like your body can't distinguish all of that stuff. And so you have to get outside, watch the birds. The birds will calm you down, go to the ocean, whatever it is, look at the trees, like get back into like what's real. What's real? Look at the clouds. It sounds really trite and or woo woo or whatever, but that's what's real, not what's scrolling on your phone. That may be real, but now it's like we don't even we don't
Right.
even know what's real anymore, right?
Well, no, thank you for that. It just reminds me about conversations I've had lately around like how do we take care of ourselves? Because many times, especially if you're in a profession where you're such a caregiver, or you're just many times maybe you went into that profession because that's something that was nurtured in you at a young age, and so it's just who you are as a human being. But unfortunately, sometimes you forget to take care of yourself along that process. Um, and so I'm constantly having to share with like be kind to yourself. Like we are our own worst critic. And I mean, even when it comes to like all those headlines, like I'll share like because people see, as a mediator, facilitator, and they're like, oh, like let's have a peace talk, and how can I? And I'm like, I'm like to be completely honest, I don't watch or listen to the news 24/7 because I know that would just be so unhealthy for me, my own mental health. And I think also just utilizing the words mental health, trauma, trying to reflect upon how that's impacted us and how it's kind of guided us to like what we do and how we manage that, I think is ever so important as opposed to the opposite of like no mental health, no trauma here.
Yeah,
I'm always like, we all just went through COVID-19. That was a collective trauma that everyone went through. And
absolutely.
getting back to that, I feel like it was such a missed opportunity to like
Yes.
have deeper conversations. And we just quickly shifted to like, let's get back
Yes.
to normal. It's
Yes.
it's just all these and so yeah, so
COVID for
I
me like showed all the areas we really needed to work on, but then just didn't do
right.
anything about that. It was like,
Yeah.
it's such an opportunity. And
Right.
everyone, like I was talking about when everyone, like I was working and everyone was off and I was laughing about that. But here's the thing, everyone needed that break. It's like everyone was so overworked and was just like,
Right.
I just needed that time off. And it's like, let's talk about like our system and like what's going on. Like people are tired. And like you were talking about with the peace building, this is exactly what we need. If there's all this stuff going on, yes, we need to be having this conversation because it happens. It's every one of us needs to build that in order to have a world that we want to live in. It starts with us, not looking at what you can do for the other person, with
Yeah.
you and how you react. That is like the biggest thing you can do and right there you turn off the TV. And
Yeah.
that doesn't
Yeah.
mean you don't want to be informed. It means I you can know, okay, yes, there's this stuff going on with Epstein and there's a war, whatever, but what am I doing about it if I'm just endlessly reading about it?
Right.
That isn't
Yeah. I'll be honest, like just for my own self-care, and I know it's very skewed, I wait for comedy, whether it's the late night comics, late night talk show
hmm
hosts, uh, to talk about the topic. Because I think of it this way, I'm like, they have a staff of writers, probably a dozen or more, and they have figured out what's the best angle to be able to talk about this horrendous thing that's happening, but finding some light humor in the middle of it. And not to say that it's a joke, but it's like it's the only way I can
Yeah.
stomach what's happening.
Yep. For
Because
sure.
otherwise, it's just like what happened today is worse than what happened yesterday, and that was worse than what
Yep.
happened the day before. And at the end of the day, you're like, so what happened like
Yeah.
3 days
And
ago,
the
or
other
a
thing
week
you
ago, or a month
people
ago?
have to
Like,
realize too is that when you are shown something that's negative over and over and over, it grows and becomes
right,
huge. And we don't have a channel where we talk about all the amazing things that happened every single day. Because then you might think like, you know what? Our world is actually amazing right now, which it kind of
right,
is. Like you think about all the things we can do now, but we're so focused on these small few things that it's like, like during COVID, like they would have that running tab of like deaths and and it's
right,
like if they did that for car accidents every day around the world, all the people that died every day of car accidents, you wouldn't want to get into a car. But like we do that for these other things in the world. And it's like, this isn't everything going on in the world. I mean, like, yes, it's terrible, but like, there's a million other amazing things happening in the world. And we need to just shift our attention and be like, I'm not going to watch what this network or algorithm on my phone wants me to look at. I'm going to create, and I tell this with my patients too, like, buying your food and what you eat is actually a political choice. It is a radical choice going to the farmer's market and not giving money to these big corporations, which I think now there's only like five that package and create all the food in the supermarket, you know? That's a radical decision you can make with your dollar is just going to the farmer's market and buying some stuff and supporting your local farmers, even if they're not organic because they can't afford the, whatever to be certified organic. That food was probably picked this morning or last night and is going to have way more nutrients than anything shipped, picked unripe that doesn't have all the, nutrients in it. But like small things like that, create your own integrity, your own, resiliency from all this. Because that's the other thing is like, what do we need from health? Resiliency. We're never going to be perfect. We're never going to not get sick. We actually want to get sick. That's the other thing is people are so afraid to get sick. You want the resiliency. You don't want to get really sick. You want to get a little twinge and then your body to come back and fight it, right? But that's you cut your hand. I don't have to go to the doctor. I don't have, my body does it all by itself. It will bleed, it will swell, it will scab, and then it'll be gone. That's my body healing a cut on my hand on its own. And it's happening inside every day, all day, constantly. I just have to give it the tools that it needs to heal. Now, if I cut my hand and I banged it every day on the table, it would never be able to heal because it'd be opened up, maybe bacteria would get in there, bleeding more, whatever. And so that's what the lack of sleep, the bag of potato chips, the, whatever it is, and the body's just like, I can't balance all of this. And then you end up with, you know, everyone's got a different genetic propensity. Somebody it might be thyroid, somebody else it might be heart disease, somebody else it might be diabetes, somebody else it might be cancer, whatever that is. But like the body is so smart. And you don't have to do anything except give it what it needs. And sometimes all it needs is to just go outside in the sunlight and watch the birds, put your feet on the ground,
right.
have a glass of green juice. You'd be
Yes,
amazed
yes,
at the changes. Simple. What is it? Occam's razor? It's the simplest
yeah.
is usually the best. We complicate things. It's really not
Oh, isn't that
so
a lesson
complicated.
I've learned from our youth? How as adults we complicate. It's like,
Yeah.
no, it's pretty simple. I love
Yeah.
having conversation with our youth. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. Like just the basics. Sleep,
Yeah.
eat,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
have fun. Um,
Uh-huh.
you're you incorporate Hawaiian cultural principles into your practice. How does place living and practicing in Hawaii shape your philosophy of care? Because this is something you started since moving to Hawaii, is my understanding. You
Yeah.
weren't doing this in California. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, California is is where I started all my raw food journey and really diving into nutrition and all of that. But since moving here, really, I think just, I just think the veil is thinner out here, and I can, you just feel things more, and um, I think also, and there's less distraction. It's every time I go back to California, it's like, oh my God, the people and the billboards and the cars and the noise. It's like so distracting. Where here, I really, my aunt lived here, and so I knew about, aloha and mahalo, all of those Hawaiian ideals. But living here, it really, especially being in the cardiac field, like understanding like how important it is to embody aloha and embody that, like you were talking about with the peacemakers, it's like we have to embody that for our health. It's not mahalo is just like thank you. I mean, it's so much deeper. It's the gratitude for the land that gives the food that actually nourishes me, the people that I interact with, that because that's the other thing is I'm always learning from my patients. It's not just me telling them what to do. Like I'm always learning from them. And so being grateful for those opportunities. And it's always interesting to me how I get connected because I do mostly word of mouth. I don't like advertise. I have a Instagram, but I don't like, it's mostly just word of mouth. And
Yeah,
so,
it's about those relationships. I get it.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And so, like, but I'm always so grateful. I'm always picking up on, like, wow, it's interesting that this person got into my field right now because of, whatever. And so I think just also being aware and, just always grateful for, and even the illness. So, like I was saying, we beat up on ourselves for being sick, and we have to be grateful. Like, oh, either this is trying to slow me down. Maybe I need to slow down. Maybe that's why my body is, there's an interesting book, Gabor Mate, when the body says no. And he has a whole different descriptions of different autoimmune diseases based on personality types. And it's so interesting how your personality can create basically when the body says no, it's like the body's basically like, you gotta focus on me now. It's my turn. You're caretaking everyone else. Now it's my turn. And it really struck me because I thought, this is so far out of like medical guideline type, diagnosis for autoimmune, whatever. But it struck me because it's like, yes, there's so much little things like that we don't always pick up on that maybe those little tweaks, maybe looking in the mirror every day and telling yourself, I love you. Maybe that's the best medicine, you know? And so, and then when you can do that, you can do that with others and
I
so
love
on.
that.
And so, yeah.
Or just being comfortable looking at yourself in the mirror and not being judgmental about like,
Yes.
oh, I need to lose weight, or oh,
Yep.
I
Got this
like
thing on
this
my
doesn't look
nose or
right, or
whatever.
like, oh, this is so, not iron correct. I mean, whatever it may be, like we're
Yes,
like kind of going back to we are our own worst critic.
for sure.
I will say I always share like I'm like an eternal optimist. I try to find and it bothers some people, but it's also how I manage with like everything that's happening. It's like I
Yes.
have to be because otherwise I would just let anxiety and stress just take over, and that's not good for me or anybody else around me.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
And I
it's
think that's normal too, like as humans, like you're always trying to do better and level up and whatever, but it's hard. And I think also just our society, what do you do and where do you
yeah,
work and what are your
yeah,
accomplishments? And it's like you're
yes.
always trying to, what do I do? And
That is such a fascinating question. I always think like when people ask like, "Oh, what do you do?" And Western mindset, we always are like our full-time job or like
hmm
wherever you spend the majority of your time. And I will say, recently I've been having this like, I'm like, what do I do? Like, and and like from non-Western mindset, sometimes the answer is just like, I wake up, I take a walk, coffee, meet with my friend,
Uh-huh.
or read the newspaper. Literally, what I do throughout my day, and so it shouldn't be a challenging question, but like I'll say for myself, I find it. But lately, what I've been doing is just sharing. I think I've shared this when I was visiting your class about building collaborative communities, and just I've realized after a while that the way my mind works is I like finding the bridge, the connection, the relationship between whatever the topics may be, and and I do it through a couple of different formats. And so yeah, and so that's what kind of brings us today to just have this conversation,
Yeah, I
and
like
and that
that.
and I feel like you're exactly doing that through not only your training, many years of training, but also your own journey into raw foods and greens and yeah, just trying to find some new way to, and I think it also goes back to that, what you were just saying about not advertising, it is about those relationships. It's because
And
that's
this
going to be
and
more
it kind of goes
powerful.
back to what you're asking about with the Hawaiian culture is like this is kind of what I when I initially went into this kind of saw myself as is like the community doctor, the
Yeah,
community healthcare person. Like I don't always charge. Like I have people in my neighborhood that I work with all the time, and it's like, and I'm also the worst because I'm always like, oh, don't, asking for money and whatever. But I also love it, I
right.
love being able to tell someone like a little thing where it's like, try this. Oh my God, do this. And, you know,
Exactly.
and it's like that's what it's about. And again, they could have, they might be fixing my roof with the leak soon, and that's
Yeah,
the power of community is we all
right.
have our things to give.
I-
And again, it's like it's funny because I struggled with it for so long too. Like, what do I do? What do I do? What am I good at? And I always envied
yeah,
people that had the one thing that they were good at. And I feel like, and I'm always been like a jack of all trades. Like I'm all
yeah,
over the place. I've got all these interests, and I feel like I'm finally at an age where I'm like I can bring everything together now somehow. And I don't know, help people in some way. But yeah, it's
most definitely helping people. I would say, I always, it's so funny when I hear young people like, what do I want? I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And I'm like, I know people in their 60s who are retired who still don't know what they want to be when they
exactly
grow up. Like, and that's the beauty of it. You get to evolve, you get to pivot in life. And if anything, I think it helps with your brain, keeping it fresh, like, well, let me learn something new. Most people, what did I hear? Like some study about like most people go through like five different careers in their life.
for sure. Like
And
I know, and my friends' kids right now are like picking a major in college, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't know what I think of
yeah,
myself at 18. I didn't know what I was doing, and
yeah,
like, thank God, because it just, I just sort of flowed and let me try this. And it's always interesting to me to look back and think like, oh wow, when this happened, that's when I went and looked into this, which
right.
then led me to that, you know? And so, yeah, because it wasn't until my neighbor who lost a bunch of weight, that's when she talked about the raw food, which then led me to, so it's just interesting how things happen. And yeah, and I think it's just also being open to that, being open to what you hear. And, you know, and it's like also what they say about the plants growing in your front yard. Those are usually the ones you need to take. It's usually growing right in your yard, you know, whether it's aloe vera or noni or whatever it is. It's like, or dandelion root, which we pull out and poison. But like,
Oh,
it's so interesting how it's usually all right there, you know, but we're so like,
yeah.
what do we do? What do we do?
Just
Where are we
reminded
going?
me, I have some purple sweet potatoes growing, and
Oh,
I learned that the leaves themselves are edible. Like
yes.
it's not just because people would always like, just, oh, throw out the leaves, and so yeah, it is. It's all around us. So
Yeah.
how do we engage with it in a
And I think
more
it's all just
intentional
like
way?
we got to get back to basics, you know? Like this
Yeah.
that simplicity part again. Like what is the simple thing I can do? Like is it just going to bed, you know, having a good breakfast and a walk and that's okay. Like that's great. And you know, and then going back to COVID, like that's what people needed to do. Of course, people started drinking a bunch of alcohol and you know, all of that. But like you said, the opportunity was there to like, hey, let's start. And I think a lot of people did, you know, created communities. I know people with kids created their little, you know, bubbles and stuff. And but yeah, I feel like we need to go more in that direction.
I will say it is quite refreshing to be able to see the world or even like COVID through a child's eye or like just asking like, oh, so just about your day,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And yeah, it just helps me kind of recenter and shift my perspective a bit. So it was very
Yeah.
refreshing.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, now, you're is it your consulting? I was about to say your business. You used the word mahalo, which I know can mean carries very deep meaning. And it kind of got me thinking about like gratitude and how does gratitude show up as a clinical tool in the work that you do?
Oh, well, yeah, for sure. I mean, and like I was saying before, you know, there's always that practice of like, think of three things you're grateful for today. And I always like to think, what are three things that happened today that went well? Because sometimes people can, when you think of what, oh, I'm grateful to be alive and I'm grateful I'm breathing, and, you know, things like that, which is great. But sometimes if you just think of your day as like, what are three things that went well? You know, oh, I didn't get rained on walking to my car. Um, you know, oh, you know, whatever it is, those simple things every day, and that habit keeps you
Yeah,
thinking like life is okay.
yeah,
But the mahalo part, again, yeah, it goes back to that gratitude and always being thankful for everything going on. And again, it's not that doom scrolling. It's thinking about all those things that go well, you know, and being grateful for that. And even the things that don't go well, you
yeah.
know, there's always a lesson in there. And, you know, and even like my students, you know, they just had an exam and I say, you know, all the business people do this. You do a debrief, you know, what went well and what could go better. Because if you don't debrief off whenever you have a big, you know, whether it's a test or a presentation or something that you're working on, a business, you're just going to keep making the same mistakes. But also being grateful for those mistakes because it tells you what to change. Because we're not all perfect and we're all, you know, that's the whole point. And so you know, what went well on this test? You got a good grade, but what could have gone better? Maybe you could have gotten a better night's sleep the night before. Maybe you shouldn't have eaten a little better, whatever it is. But those are the lessons, and be grateful for those lessons and be grateful for, you know, the things that pop up in life because also life isn't always going to be perfect, you know? And I think some people strive for like perfect health. I don't
Mm,
ever want to get sick. And the thing is, that's not life. What you want to be is resilient. You want, because you will always have stress. You will have a death. Somebody in your family or your friend is going to die. It's just life. Or a pet, or your car is going to break, whatever it is, something is going to happen and it's going to be stressful. And you have to be resilient. We have to learn how to be resilient and not just like, I'm not going to travel because I don't want to get on a plane and I don't want to get sick. No, you want to be exposed to things, but how am I going to feed my body so that it can bounce back? We don't teach any of that, right? We just,
Mm, yep.
you know, but there are lots of things we can do to build the resiliency of our body so that when we have these stresses, we can weather them. And that's also part of the mahalo part is be thankful for those things because that informs you of what you need and be grateful for it. Again, it's like, not that cancer is a great thing, but like what is this trying to show me? What is it trying to teach me? And, your body is your ally. It's not something, that's why I don't like the fight cancer, because that's you. You're fighting yourself. Like,
Right.
no, we need to learn the lesson of what is it. And there's always a lesson in everything. So,
Yes. Yes. That's so true. And even like just shifting that perspective, I mean, it just recall what you just said, like, being grateful for not being stuck in the rain. Well, some people, I know some people that love to like go out when it's raining and
yeah.
just
Yeah.
having that water just hit them and just
Yeah.
being one with, not even having the slippers on, just being one with nature. So yeah, um, thank you. Thank you for that.
And I
And,
will say it is, I struggled a bit with the Mahalo medicine as well because I'm not from Hawaii. I'm not Hawaiian. And so taking that word, I was a little nervous about, but I just so resonated with the idea behind it. And so even though I am not of Hawaiian culture, it's still just, I don't know, it just I really sat with it for a while. And because of all of that, and I just feel like, with my mom's illness and everything I've learned through working in the field that, all of these, you know, life, I have gone through many twists and turns in life and had many obstacles, and I've been grateful for all of them. So my life has not been a straight, nice, easy path. And so, but at the same time, I have learned that all of those obstacles and detours have really built who I am and how I live. And so to me, it's really, really important and something that I take very seriously. And and like you were talking about walking the walk, it is something that I continually am learning, still learning and going through and learning about health. And it's funny, one of my patients yesterday uh, has some cardiac issues, and so he still has a cardiologist, and he refers to her as his fat cardiologist. He's like,
okay.
I know, and he's like, if you saw her, you would wonder why you would ask for care from a cardiologist who's obese, which I get, and it goes back to what's going on in our system. He's like, I'm not going to
Mm,
go to an accountant or, an investor with, has less money than me. You know what I mean?
good point.
So,
Good point.
yeah, I get it. But it's just funny because he kept referring to her as his fat cardiologist. But he's like, I want somebody that walks the walk. And that is the other thing I do see in the field too, is like a lot of people are, and not any fault of theirs, they also don't have the information, you know. So, but anyhow, for me, it's very much important that I am also doing the work along with everyone. And I may not have all the answers, but I'm always, you know, open and still going down that path of where's this going to lead me to next and what's on the other side. And the other thing is when you don't have your health, you got one problem. Because once you lose your health, you got no other problems except that one. So health is very, very important.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, no, definitely. And thank you for just your thoughtfulness of like, I mean, in general, I always ask folks to not only practice reflections, but also gratitude. And it's, it sounds like you chose the right word to fully encompass that within the work that you're doing. So I think it goes beyond the concept of like, the conversation about cultural appropriation, that kind of stuff. Because it's and I imagine when people meet you and work with you, they see that it's it's
Yeah,
not
I was
just
nervous about it because I don't,
no.
I get it,
I no, I remember when I first moved here and worked in an office, and I noticed everyone's like, "Oh, aloha and mahalo," and like emails, and at first I was like, "Oh, you like pivot, try to adapt," and then after a while, like after a couple of weeks, I was like, "Well, I don't know. Do I truly know the deeper meaning of that word? Have I been here long enough to truly?" And so I shifted, and I still till this day I don't use it that much. I'll use it maybe in conversation after getting to know someone very well, and if they're the ones that kind of like propose it at the end, I will
hmm
reciprocate it, but it's not something I would feel comfortable initiating it. So yeah, it
Yeah.
is. I mean, I think like I always say, being culturally um, conscious or knowledgeable, it's an ongoing process. It's an ongoing journey, and really, and just because once more, it kind of goes back to the work that you do. It's a case by case individual thing. Just because someone maybe has a Hawaiian name, I shouldn't assume that they were
Right.
born here or even speak the language or
Yes,
so you
yes.
never know the pathways that people have gone
Yeah.
through. But
But I will
yeah,
say for my whole life, I've always been drawn to more indigenous cultures. My best friend growing up was Hopi Indian. And so she grew up literally right next door to me. We were 2 months apart in age, both only children. So she's like my sister.
yeah,
And so um, this was in Los Angeles. And so I would take trips with her to the reservation in Arizona, the Hopi reservation. And her dad was one of the chiefs. And so he would do dances. He was one of the weavers. And so back then, this was like late 70s, early 80s. I was like one of the only white people, on the reservation and going to these dances, the Kachina dances and stuff. And so, as a kid, I didn't know. It was like, oh, we're going to Arizona. We get in the RV and go. We
yeah,
play Barbies on the
oh,
mesa.
that's great.
But it always, I loved it, and I love the culture of it, and the dances, and the food, and I don't know, something with it just so resonated with me.
Yeah,
And then with my aunt living out here, and I would come out here to visit,
you got
something
immersed further.
similar with that same
Yeah,
type of culture where I always felt that the indigenous culture is going to save the world. And there is like a Hopi prophecy,
yeah, I've
um
heard.
that and then also just the embodiment of aloha. Like aloha can save the world, as weird as that sounds, but it's like if you embody that it's not only love for others, but for yourself. And if we can, going back to the peacemaker point, it's like we will then have a better world.
Yeah,
And so, and then also my mom, her background. So my mom grew up Amish. And so she left in high school. But growing up, grew up in a completely Amish household on a farm. And so I don't know if that like,
did she ever instill any of those lessons in her own
I think
raising of her
just,
child, or I mean, I feel like there's so many layers now. It's like
yeah. I mean, I think just
Bless you.
the I mean, definitely the toughness. I mean,
Yeah.
that independence and that toughness.
Yeah.
And I think also just that going against the grain. Like I think maybe that
Right, right.
got
Maybe I
instilled
don't need
in
to do it
me.
exactly like everybody else. I love that. I love finding that bridge. And I mean, I don't know much about Amish heritage, but I assume there must be some indigenous origins at
Yeah,
some
yeah. I mean, they're
point.
like the German. I mean, they came over
Yeah,
early, and so they don't have any input from outside world. Like they just doing, they don't
right.
use technology, they
Yeah.
don't use medicines generally at all, um,
So
other
you're
than
kind of
their own.
you're slowly moving back to your
I know, it's
Amish
so funny.
with raw. You're like, we need
I
to eat raw
know.
food. You know, it's
Yeah, and they're
irony of
farmers.
life. Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's interesting how, and they build everything on their own. It's
Yeah.
like, and they have their own community. So it's funny because I did not grow up at all around any of that because my mom took herself
Right.
out and did not raise me that way. I'm sure there are tenets of that she instilled in me because she cooked, she baked, she did everything on her own. Also, none of my parents are on medicines. Like that whole idea is like, why would we take a medicine kind of thing. So I kind of grew up in, I guess, that mindset, but I didn't grow up Amish at all. So yeah, it is interesting. It's always interesting to me how that ancestry kind of comes up in you without even knowing, you know?
Right.
Like,
Yes.
and we all come together and bring these
Yeah.
pieces and maybe don't understand, like, and that's why going back to diet, I always tell people, don't change. Like, I'm not going to give you recipes, like, especially because growing up in LA, there was a lot of Mexicans. And so, telling them not to eat beans and rice? Like, you kidding me? That's your
Mm.
culture, you know?
Yes.
But like we can add a lot of things to it that are raw and that are healthy,
Right.
adding avocado, whatever. Like we just have to tweak things. But yeah, culture is so important. And so like
Thank
Mexicans
you.
weren't getting sick until recently. So why? They didn't it's something else is happening.
Right. Right.
It's
And I
not the
mean, you
beans and the rice.
I mean, and honestly, going back to eating raw, just and now linking it up with what we're talking about, we haven't even talked about like pesticides. And I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things why sometimes there is this whole push toward organic, and I get it, and I've read up on it and studied it, and so we do try to lean toward that as much as possible. And it's tough because like everyone loves their strawberries, but
Hmm. Yeah.
one, organic strawberries are rare to find.
Yeah.
And the other kind that you do find, you're like, oh wait, how much like pesticides does this actually have? How is
Yeah.
this going to impact me down the road? I will say one wonderful thing I've found is just connecting. Well, either you grow it yourself, if you have
Hmm.
the land or the space to have a greenhouse, or connecting with your local folks at the farmers market and
Yeah.
just getting to know, even if they don't advertise as organic, what is the process? And if I found one, if they're not receptive to having that conversation, maybe I shouldn't be shopping
Yeah.
there to begin with.
Yeah.
I know some, I get it's a business, and some will just go to like a larger, like Costco, and buy in bulk and like
Right.
repackage it in smaller portions. But there are folks that want to have that conversation and will share what their process is. And what I've learned is sometimes it is organic steps that they're taking, but once more, it costs thousands of dollars to be
Yes.
certified organic. And
Yes.
so if you can find the right farmers, then wonderful. You can still be eating raw, healthy
Yeah.
vegetables that are not
And
gonna.
not just that, but like you have the pesticides, which we're talking about, but then you have the ripeness. So
Mm.
when was it picked?
Oh
So
yeah.
you could have something that's organic, but it wasn't picked ripe. And so it doesn't
Right.
have the full amount of nutrients in it.
Especially
So
if
now you go to the farmer's market,
right.
I'd be more apt to get something that's not organic or at least not certified organic,
Yeah.
but was picked this morning or yesterday.
Right.
It's
Because
still
yeah.
alive, you know?
Yeah. And
And
that's why
so,
when you go to most larger stores, everything's like most of the times going bad. So
yeah.
it would just
Yeah.
it makes such a
Or
big
shipped
difference. That's so
from,
true.
you see like grapes from Chile. It's like, okay, well, when was this picked and shipped and, like,
Yes.
and then they have to like put that ethylene gas in there to like ripen everything,
Oh my.
so it's like a forced ripening
Right.
versus going to the farmer's market, they're like picking the calamansi off the tree and
Right.
like, okay, I'll just take that, like,
I one thing I've also learned here in Hawaii is, I mean, some folks they just have these amazing fruit trees in their backyard, and especially with older generations, they just don't have the energy to like keep picking it. And
yeah.
so make a friend.
Yes.
Because if you don't help them by picking it, and then
Yep.
then it's gonna fall, and then they're gonna have to clean it up, or they're gonna have to get, the landscapers to do it.
Yeah, and the
So
other thing is like in our neighborhood we have these empty lots. So I'm like we have these hillsides where the houses have fallen down,
yeah,
so they're not going to rebuild, but they're just these empty lots.
yeah.
And I'm like, can't we make a garden or something so like everyone in the
Mm,
neighborhood could plant things instead of just
community
this like
gardens, yeah.
grass patch that the city comes and like mows
Yep,
once a month, like
yeah.
because some people they might have a yard, but they don't have room,
Right,
to
right.
grow things. And but the other thing, like as you were talking, like even if you don't have a garden, like what I always tell people is to grow sprouts. Sprouts are like the simplest, easiest thing. You don't you don't even need a windowsill. You can just put them on your counter. They just need some indirect light and you just need seeds and water and a glass jar. And you just rinse them every day and put the jar upside down and it drains. And in 5 days, you've got this whole bottle of sprouts. And you can have sprout salad, you can add sprouts to your meal, and they're live. And you don't have to have any dirt. You don't have to, nothing. So easy. So sprouting is great. And then I have an arrow garden, which is just like a hydroponic. It's just, it's not that big and it's got like six little holes and you just put seeds in these little foam containers and it's got a light and the light turns on and off based on, you can do lettuces or herbs and super don't need any dirt. You don't even need a windowsill because it's got its own light. I
Yes.
mean that's like $100, so that's a little more expensive, and then you got to buy the seeds. But I grow all my lettuces and herbs. I have two. I have one for lettuces and one
It's
for herbs.
amazing.
And you just trim them and they just keep growing. And you
Yeah,
can, but it's nice because with the dirt and then you got to move,
you're right.
So there's easy, and you can do like tomatoes and I'm sure strawberries and things like that. I just do lettuces and herbs just because that's what I use the most. And then I have my sprouts that I grow. But so you can live in an apartment building and
Yeah.
have that.
Rest
You can
assured,
be
have a
a
salad on a daily
kapuna,
basis.
you know, and do that kind of stuff. So really easy, simple things. And then same with the green juice. You can go to Costco and buy a bottle of suja and just do that. And then if like even his wife who was drinking the Ensure, I told him, I said, even if she just made a smoothie with like coconut milk or, macadamia nut milk, whatever, like milk from
Yeah.
Costco, whatever, and blend a banana. That is going to be
Mm,
better than the Ensure. Because if you've ever read the ingredient list
right.
on a bottle of
And sure,
Ensure,
it's sugar's so high,
it's
and
the
just
worst. It's
there's all
like
these
high
words you
fructose
can't. You're
corn
like, what do these
syrup.
words mean?
I know. And then
I
it's just
always,
like
yeah,
new vitamins put in there, but they're all
right,
synthetic vitamins. And you're better
yeah,
off just making a smoothie out of almond milk and a
right,
frozen banana
right.
and
Yeah,
a mango or
my
whatever.
general philosophy is like if I'm reading something that one I can't even pronounce or even know what it means,
Yeah,
that's a flag. Also, I've learned if
absolutely
it's
not.
whatever is within the first three ingredients is what
Yeah,
they put more of,
yeah.
and so if the good ingredients are toward the end of that description, you're like,
Yes,
maybe
that's
you
a
should
really bad sign.
consider. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
But
That is
yeah,
a bad sign. But
all
yeah,
the
it's
little
super simple. Like,
yes,
like I get that Ensure is easy because you're just popping open a can, but like just get a basic blender and Costco, you can get a bag of organic blueberries. You can get a big thing of almond milk or whatever kind of nut
yeah.
milk you like.
And I gotta
And
say, a lot of people sometimes don't understand that like the organic fruits and vegetables, I think sometimes are better than the fruits and vegetables that have been picked way too early before they were
yeah.
ripe.
Hmm.
And also they're more reasonably priced as
Yes.
well.
Yep. You can keep them in the
Ah,
freezer, frozen, the frozen bags. And the thing is most people are like, but what about the sugar? And it's like, this is the disconnect people have. They think making a smoothie with blueberries and a
yeah,
banana with milk, nut milk, is worse than an Ensure because of the sugar. There's a big, big problem.
right.
That is like a big problem because that is real food.
Yeah,
Regardless of the sugar, you're ingesting real food, food that your body understands, that your body can get the messages from, that can process, that doesn't go into inflammation. Where Ensure, the body doesn't understand that. It's a bunch of fake lab processed ingredients made to look and smell like food. But the
yeah,
body has no understanding of that. And so it sees it as foreign and creates inflammation, which then just progresses even more. So interrupting that and just giving real food, we need to get away from this whole sugar. I get that like white sugar, processed sugar is bad. Anything coming out of what it is.
yeah,
So, we had sugar cane and then we extracted the sugar from it. But that's the other thing. Sugarcane juice is amazing. It's full of minerals, trace minerals that our
ooh,
bodies
yep,
don't have. It's a silica. Silica is what's good for your hair and your nails. It's like a
yeah,
grass. And so, really, really great. It's the same with like cocaine. The coca leaf, they chew on coca leaf in
yep.
Peru. That's how they work. It gives them a little bit of energy.
And it
They're
helps.
not
So
addicted.
just yeah. So to provide further context about that, it helps, especially high elevation. It helps you
Yes.
with the breathing.
Altitude
They
sickness.
make tea
Yes.
out of it.
Helps
Uh,
oxygenate you better.
but one of the things I always have to tell people, it's like cocaine is it's not just it's processed with other things. Like
Hmm.
it's
But
yeah.
it's
It's like
also extracted. So
right,
it's the same with white sugar. It's
right,
extracted from the source. And so when you have one thing, it doesn't have all the other
right.
compounds around
Yeah,
it to balance it.
yeah.
That's where the problems come in. So we should not be
Yes,
afraid of fruit, because of the sugar.
yes.
You don't want to have the white sugar, but when we say sugar and then we apply it to all the things that contain sugar that are real,
Mhm.
that's the problem, because
Yeah,
it's not the same. Because they're not, the thing is, then you miss in the blueberry the pigments, the phytonutrients, all the other compounds, the quercetin, all of those things that are actually healing and that are going to decrease the inflammation in your
yeah.
body. You're not getting that in Ensure, those are, and then we try and like, oh, you can take things in a supplement, which can be good too, but we also really want to try and get the real thing and the real food so
Yeah.
that we have, and again, there's so much that we don't even know about food, you know? about fruits and vegetables and etheric forces. We haven't even talked about etheric forces and like what is the energy of the food, you know? It's like it's more than just the compounds in the food.
Right.
What
No,
about
thank
the
you.
impact with the bees on the food and on the
Yeah.
flour and on the fruit, you know? And the sunlight and that force. And then when you're eating that and ingesting that, like plants are actually like our allies, you know? They are
Yes.
conspiring with us to improve us and to heal us, and they want to help us.
They've been around a lot longer than
Yeah,
those buildings and
yes.
vehicles that you see around
Yeah.
us.
Yes.
Nothing
So,
to. Um,
yeah.
so just there's so much more I would love to ask, but I do know that there is I love the concept of community. Or you keep talking about community, and I really do love that. And um, how can healthcare become more culturally responsive without losing its scientific rigor, would you say?
Oh, great question. Well, I think we gotta tear down the system. I don't know. I mean, in our current system, it's tough. I
Yeah.
tried to create group, um, like group type visits where I was at Queens, but insurance doesn't cover it. You know, so there's no input, there's no way to do it in our system because it doesn't make money. All types of community-based initiatives have kind of either not taken off or they've died a slow death. Cardiac rehab is one. Cardiac rehab is like amazing, but there's no money in it because you need a doctor, nurses, physical therapists, but it's the best thing for the patient, but it's too expensive for the insurance companies. So you know, that's kind of why I thought like doing what I do now would be helpful. But again, it's hard because people have to pay out of pocket. I don't take insurance. Um, so that is, I'll be honest, that's kind of one of the things that I'm, you know, still meditating on is like, how can we bring back this community aspect for our health as far as like provider wise, but also our health as we were talking about in general as a health mental you know, that also contains our head that is attached to our body. Um, it is all one. Um, how how can we just create community in general? You know, I feel like even beyond health, like I've been really focusing on it just in my little neighborhood. You know, I walk the dog and meet the other dog walkers and you know, everyone does different things and I also do sound, so like the crystal bowls and the gong and stuff. I actually discovered that here when I came here, I went and I was blown away with how because I'm not a meditator. I get too in my head. I have a hard time I shouldn't say I'm not a meditator, but I have a really hard time just sitting and meditating. I either need to listen to something that's guiding my mind. But I found with the sound, with the gongs and the bowls, it just drops my brain into that alpha range of meditation so quickly, and I don't have to do anything. And I was like, wow, that is great. And so what's interesting is with the sound is your brain, so that state that your brain waves go into when you meditate, or even when you're like deep sleeping, this is when you like process things. So if I'm ruminating about something I want to do, problem solving, you know, your brain can just work things out, which is why like you dream. You know, sometimes you can figure out solutions while you're dreaming. But anyhow, doing the sound just within 30 minutes of that, like restores my brain and gets it. coherent. Anyhow, so I'm trying to like get a neighborhood thing going where like just people in the neighborhood can come so I can, but and somebody else in the neighborhood like makes soups. And so there's like a text thread where I'm making, Thai chicken soup today and it's $25 for 2 jugs, whatever. And then like my neighbor over here, she's a vet. And so she kind of looks over the dogs. And so I feel like just I'm trying like just in the neighborhood, how
Yeah.
can we build
How
this
can you build
community
community? That's so true.
force? And again, I'm still, because I have been pondering this too, as far as how can this apply to larger healthcare? And I really, again, felt like COVID was a great opportunity. But then when nothing panned out, I thought, okay, I I have kind of, I hate to say it, given up on healthcare in general. I think there's way too much money to be made in it overall for them to make any changes. And even stuff, I mean, I don't know if I want to get into that, but even stuff that Queens is doing, like I loved my patients and colleagues working at Queens, but the overall Queens system, I hate to say, they're not really interested either. And um, they give lip service to the community and all that, but again, it's a business, right? It's just a consciousness. So if you have a $1 billion business, it's kind of hard to consciously make decisions from a place that's,
No,
it's
no,
just,
I get it.
it's unfortunate. And again, that doesn't mean that everyone within that system working isn't having those ideals working for the community.
Right.
But if you're ceilinged in some way, you're never going to be able to really embody that or at least bring that to life. So things get shut down and cut out. It's actually happening
Yeah.
right now. So they're doing a bunch of cuts right now at Queens, and it's all
Yeah.
in the name of finances, but you know, they got
It's happening
they got
in
a
lots
lot of
of
money.
industry. I know, I see where there's lots of cuts or basically people being let go, fired, whatever they want to use,
Hmm.
just as a means to continue the organization moving forward. This is happening in higher education a lot as well
Yep.
too.
Yep. We got a
You,
hiring freeze.
yep,
Yep. No,
yep.
yep.
There's just different strategy. I mean, honestly, in my 2 decades in higher ed, my flag is always like whenever there's like we're doing a reorg, I'm like, okay. That's like that's a clear
Yeah.
sign that like something's not getting good publicity or there's not enough
Yeah.
funding. And so you use the word reorg
And then
to,
you have to think about tax wise, you want to look
yeah,
like you're not, you don't want to look like you're making too much money,
right.
when taxes come around. So it's like, oh, let's cut this, this, and this, so
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, there's a little bit of that too, where they don't want
right,
to, they have to reorganize things and cut things so that they can not pay too much in taxes.
right. Just business as they say,
Yes.
unfortunately. Um, you talked a little bit about this, but and you talked about how you teach as well. So maybe this is a little different, but how if you could redesign medical education, what would you add that's currently missing?
Yeah. So, I mean, definitely nutrition.
Yeah.
We don't have any nutrition, nothing. I mean,
Wow.
it's crazy. I think doctors get 20 hours. And when I say nutrition, the nutrition they're getting is like carbohydrate, protein, fat, like not, you know, looking at, you know, quinones and different like plant particles and things like that. Like,
And that's only in the classroom. Sorry, it just got me
yes.
thinking about like in their training in residency. There's no like let's be
No,
conscientious of a work-life balance or nutrition.
exactly.
And because I always hear stories about they're like, oh, residency ends up being like 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
And many times you just eat whatever, unless you
Yep.
have used up that little time that you have that should be sleeping to prepare your meals, or you have someone to do that for you. You're basically like, okay, vending machine. What do we have here? What do we
Yep.
have in the cafeteria?
Exactly.
And it's
Yeah, and then let's
it's
go to that cafeteria where they're serving French fries and hamburgers
bacon
in
and
a
yeah,
hospital.
right.
So none of it is aligning. It's just
Yeah.
not, like why aren't we even teaching these residents like, okay, you're not going to have a lot of time and money. Let's focus on smoothies. Smoothies and juices. This will fuel you. It'll fuel your brain and you'll won't get sick and they're easy and you can drink them on the go. Like this is what I tell my students, like super easy. You can make a bunch of smoothies, put them in the fridge and you're hungry, you can just grab one and drink it and you're full and you're have energy, unlike pulling something out of a vending machine or going and eating a plate of French fries. Not to say that you can't do that here and there, but like if this is all that you're doing, this is not sustainable. And then you're trying to take care of patients, like, and then this is the example that you lead, and then it's also kind of cheered upon, like, yeah, you hear people joking about it, like, I lived on this and that. It's like, but this shouldn't be something
Yeah.
that
I
we're
mean,
proud of.
right, right.
And
It's also
staying
this
up
like,
late and it's like
yeah.
we shouldn't.
It's also this like cycle of like it's hazing. That's what it kind of comes
Yes.
down to. It's like
Yes.
this is the way. So for whoever their attendings are or retiring and saying like this is what it was like for them when they had to
Right.
go through it. So why change it,
Yeah,
right? Like no one's
exactly. So like for
questioning
me and
that.
my teaching, I always really and I also don't like in education, especially nursing education, this risk of failing. Everyone's afraid they're gonna fail and this and that. And I don't want my students to fail, and I'm always trying to give them the best opportunity to succeed because, and not to say that people don't fail, but it's not failing. They don't fail because of, like some teachers try and trick the students and don't give them a study guide and like, oh, you just have to know everything, 30 chapters. And it's like, okay, well, is that really? I mean, what are we trying to do here? It's like, let's be reasonable. Like for me, I want my students to know certain, like you can't know everything and I can't test you on everything, but these are the things you have to know. You will learn everything as work and as you move through the program and this and that. But like, I rather have them really focus in on stuff to learn rather than just like, scattered about, not really knowing anything. But again, that's just my philosophy. But also, it's like we need to start nourishing our students again, and rather than like us against them. Ah, the students are the enemy. It's just like the patients. Ah, yeah, this patient came in complaining about this and thought the medicine was doing that. It's like I don't know, maybe. I've had some weird stuff where patients are like, this medication did this to me. And I'm like, I have never heard that. But you might be right. I mean, like, I don't know. Are they making it up? Just because I don't know what it is, I shouldn't let my ego get involved and be like, no, it's not the medicine, it's you. It's like, I don't know, maybe it's whatever else was going on or something it's and going back to what we were talking about before with the research. I mean, it's only been 20 years that research studies have used women. Used to all be men. And so when we study a medication or something, it used to just all be men study participants. And so we hear now about like cardiac risks with women and women, have actually may have higher risk and they present differently than men with a heart attack. Well, they have different physiologies, they're menstruating, they're getting pregnant, they're having menopause. I mean, the hormones are completely different than men. It would make sense that the medications would also react differently. But that's also only 20 years of being used. But anyhow, I got off topic.
All good, all good. No, thank you so much. So I just want to say thank you so much for, just we can keep talking, but I know maybe we'll save it for the next go
Yeah.
around. But just some takeaways for folks, definitely start focusing on those 50%. If you take anything away from today, I think it would be try to have your meals be at least 50% of your daily intake is raw
Yep.
food.
Yep. Just find raw food, whatever that is. Okay, well, what are you eating for breakfast? Somebody's having oatmeal. Okay, you can add a banana. That's raw. You could
Yeah.
add some
Some
raw
nuts.
nuts.
Yeah.
Make sure they're not roasted.
Mm,
Raw nuts or seeds onto that. Obviously fruit. What are you having for lunch? Okay, I'm having a sandwich. And this is like not changing anything as far as like,
yeah.
I'm having a sandwich. Perfect. Add sprouts, add an avocado. If on the mainland from Mexico, they're having rice and beans, salsa, that's raw tomato, raw onion,
Right.
raw cilantro, avocado. So there's a lot of just, I'll have like a printout, of just
Yeah.
like raw food options, things you
Yeah.
can add, or have a green juice with your oatmeal,
There you
which
go.
is going to be raw. Or um, if you're having like a stew for dinner or lunch or whatever, pair it with a smoothie, which is going to be all raw, right? Raw
Right.
fruits and vegetables. So easy little things. And then as you start just adding in, so I usually try not to take anything out, just add in. And as you add in, you start crowding out. So adding the raw food. And then on top of that, trying to focus more on actual food. So if you're eating a frozen meal or something for lunch, try making that or at least having more actual food rather than processed food. So that would be the next step of that.
Yes.
And so as you start adding in real food, whether it's cooked or raw, and adding more raw food, you start to feel more alive.
Yeah.
You really do. And so
Yeah.
as you start to feel more alive, not only does that change your health, but it also changes your sense of purpose, your sense of thinking and being able to make decisions, which is really important because some people are just so numbed out. They're just n not even
Yeah.
conscious of what they're doing. So we're
Yeah.
trying to create consciousness,
Yeah.
right?
If
And
you're
adding,
relying on the energy drinks, the
yes.
coffee, the tea, whatever it may be, just to get you
None of
going
that
in the
is
morning,
real. And the
it's
water that's used in that is not even alive. We haven't even gotten
right.
into water. Like
Yes.
water is a
Yeah. Well,
consciousness,
you just mentioned beans, and I know we're talking about raw stuff, but like beans is such a,
Yes.
I mean, for something cooked, I think it's an amazing, nutritious,
Yes.
so many, and a lot of
Yep.
people just don't do beans for whatever.
And they're cheap.
They're so cheap.
Yep.
Yes, yes. I would cook beans from scratch, not the canned. The canned
Mm-hmm.
ones are too processed, but
Yep.
I just discovered like frozen beans, frozen organic beans, which is like cuts out on my time so much,
Wow.
and they're I just as nutritious as the dried
Yeah.
beans that you could get.
Oh,
So
interesting. I haven't seen the frozen beans.
it, not they're not around that much because I don't think people really know about it, or
Yeah.
they actually are more expensive sometimes the than the non I mean than
And this
just the
is where
dried
you use
kinds.
your money
Yeah, but
to promote
right.
a product. Yeah.
Right, right. But I do see though, because there aren't a lot of it, sometimes they'll put it on sale or they'll like
Mm.
last chance it at different stores. And so that's when I'm like, okay, let me stock up. But yeah, I have truly, truly, thank you so much for this conversation. As we
Oh,
close
thank
today's
you.
conversation, I'm just reflecting on and just your humility and your bravery on this journey to shift out of the routine of your life of what you've been trained in, um, the intensity of the ICU to the intentionality of root cause healing. After serving patients in hospitals, you chose not to walk away from medicine but to walk deeper into it, but find your own path. And I truly do think that's and I love how there's there's bridges related to like your ancestry of the Amish community
Right?
in
I
so many
know.
ways that deeply embedded
I
maybe
know.
make your
I just
mom
made that
proud or
connection
not.
right now. So,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. So just it stands out to me, just shift once more. We talked about shifting your perspective from crisis prevention to crisis response to prevention. And I think that's truly at the core when we talk about positive peace and peace building. It's about taking those proactive steps. I always tell people, if you're seeing your dentist twice a year, you're going to your doctor, right there, you're practicing prevention. You're taking care of yourself. You're a peace builder. So managing those, from system management to system thinking, from dependence to empowerment. So that's what some of the things I just have truly heard you shared today. So thank you through your work at Mahalo Medicine. You remind us that healing is not just about stabilizing numbers on the chart. It's about restoring balance physically, emotionally, culturally, spiritually. It's about asking better questions. And I will say for some of us who are not trained in the field, sometimes we don't know what questions to ask. And so
Hmm.
hopefully people take some things away from here about just the power of listening longer, about
Yeah.
seeing
And
the whole
relying more on
person.
yourself as well, rather than
Yeah.
just for everything going to your doctor, because they don't
Yes.
know all the answers. And so, guess what? Like, we need to take control of our health and our destiny. And like you were just saying a few words ago, like, always living in crisis. Like, if you're
Yeah.
always living in crisis, how are we going to build peace? And part of that starts with our health. And as we balance our health and our mind and our thinking and then our relationships and then
Yes.
our world,
Yes.
it's
Yes. It
just
just
a
reminds it. Yeah.
microcosm.
Yeah. I mean, a peace is not just about negotiating, in conference
Yeah.
rooms. It's cultivated like in the exam rooms. It begins in the body, expands into
Yes.
families, it shapes communities.
Yes.
We touched upon communities, but we didn't go deep dive into it. And I have to say, I'm always humbled and honored and have great faith in community, especially during these challenging, ongoing times. Like just to see how communities are rising up and stepping up.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
mean, you just talked about in your own neighborhood, someone's making soup or someone's like,
Yeah.
everyone's caring for each other in some capacity. I think that's what gives me faith that we're
And
going
my
to be
hope is
okay.
that with AI, that people are going to seek it out even more because
Mhm.
it feels like people are
Yeah.
wanting that peace so much. And I think if anything comes out of it, I mean, AI is great for some stuff, but it's going to really kind of hopefully force us to be like, we need to put real roots into our community and our
Yeah.
face to face and what's real, you
So
know,
true.
the birds and the clouds and the soil
Yes.
and start
Yes.
really paying attention to that stuff. And that stuff is real. Like we get into all the studies and it's like
Right.
it's
It,
simple.
I think understanding that AI is also, it's a tool. I look at it as
Yep.
like
Yep.
it's a spatula in your kitchen.
Yep.
It's a tool that helps you do certain things. It should
Mm-hmm.
not be doing everything for you.
Yes.
Uh, and so I think as long as we don't lose sight of that, I think that's what's ever
Yep.
so important. I love how your story also challenges to ask certain things like, where in our own lives are we treating symptoms instead of causes? That's one thing that kind
Mm-hmm.
of resonated with me. And where are we being invited to slow down, listen more deeply, feel differently? You know, um, if you've never you talked about like, just being outside and like truly appreciating nature, the birds, like, and you've never had that experience, like, try it out. And maybe there's something
Yeah.
else that connects with you uh,
And you
out
might get
there.
a great revelation,
Yeah,
something you've been thinking about and running over in your head, a problem can just appear out of nowhere from just
that's
being
what
outside.
people
And
sometimes say, like, take a break, go for a walk.
yes,
It's not just hearsay. It's like, get some
yes,
perspective. Yeah,
it's
most definitely.
amazing. It's
Yes.
amazing.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for your courage, your compassion, your commitment
Oh,
to
thank you.
transforming care. Thank you to our listeners for joining us on Peaceful Initiatives. Today, conversation resonated with you. Please share it with other folks. I truly do believe if we just continue to have dialogue, conversations, maybe this would be some good topics or ideas. Hopefully, folks listening in can bring it to their next dining table and spark further conversation. So until next time, may we continue building peace within ourselves and with one another. Thank you so much, Nancy, for
Oh, thank you,
everything
thank you,
today.
thank you. Mahalo.
Thank you.